your wife is half Palestinian, and I've heard you say that you've been trying to kill her, but she keeps using the kids as human shields. So
Yes.
have you considered negotiating a ceasefire?
Well, the thing is, every day, every minute of the day in a married life is a negotiation. Everything can blow up into a full scale war, starting from a simple sentence like, "Good morning. What should we do with the kids today?
Mhm.
What should we do with that piece of furniture?" Any sentence can lead you to heaven or to hell in the same time.
So you do negotiate with terrorists?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
You
100%.
must.
Yeah. And for her, I am her terrorist too. So it's equal.
Terrorists on both sides. On a more serious note, when you found out about the attacks of October 7th, what went through your mind?
If I'm allowed to use a curse word, I was like,
As many as
I
possible.
was like, oh shit. Part of my stand-up comedy is I describe a situation where I was in a restaurant with producers, and there was a bombing 2 blocks away in Chelsea, New York, in 2016. And of course, this is the like, damn, what's going to happen to us now?
Mhm.
And there's like two different reactions. There's like the white reaction, which is like, oh my God, I hope nobody is hurt. This is terrible. I hope everybody's okay. And there's the Arab reaction. What's his name? What is his name? What is the name? You know, because you know what's gonna come. It's kind of I was scared what's gonna really happen in that area, and it's like, oh my God, it's gonna be horrible. And the way that it was reported, I didn't know how to handle this. So I went into hiding for a few days, 3 4 days, and I talked about Piers Morgan team talking to me 2 times, 3 times. I was like, no, I can't. How can you defend that? How can you defend the rape, the decapitated babies, and whatever? And then I started kind of looking in the news a little bit, and then I started seeing people coming on the shows and saying things that I know as an Arab, as a Muslim, as someone from that region, that it's not true, but I didn't know what to say, how to say it. So I said, by the third time when they asked me, I said, like, fine, put me on. And I went there. It was more of a, figuratively speaking, a suicide mission, and because it's a lose-lose situation. I can lose stuff in Hollywood. I remember my manager's like, Bassem, be careful. I mean, are you sure you want to do it? My manager was like, please don't do it. Please don't do it. And on the other side, if I don't perform well, whatever well means, I'm gonna be rejected by my own people. So it was a lose-lose situation, because whatever I say, it will never be enough, and whatever I say will not be good enough. And I was going into there, and I felt that I was going into a trance for the 33 minutes that I was on that interview for the first time.
You blacked out.
I blacked out. I blacked out. And a lot of people ask me, is the earpiece, was that a bit? When the earpiece kept falling, it's like, no, it was really falling off and it disconnected. And I had to save it because I cannot see them. All I can hear, I can just hear them. And I could expecting at any time, okay, Bassem, thank you. I was like, I was fighting for every second to say words, to put stuff in there.
Yeah, for people who don't know, this is your conversation interview with Piers Morgan,
Mm.
and you couldn't see.
I couldn't see. I was just like the lens of the camera. And I was
It
just
was like a surreal dream or nightmare.
yeah, hello, Bassem. I was like, hello, Bassem. I was like, hi.
And it could end at any moment. Your career and everything.
Everything, yeah, yeah.
So what was the drive that got you to actually do it, to overcome that fear?
Multiple things. First of all, I don't want to say it's just my wife's family, because my wife's family has always been there, but this time was different. The bombing, the attack, they usually one of those people that they are aware of everything. Whatever happened in Gaza, they are always in safe places. But this time, it seems that there was no place safe, and already we heard about like 2 3 of the cousins and the uncles already lost their homes. So this was too much. So I wanted to say something for those people, because I know that, I made one of the jokes that I made about, like, oh, it's Hassan, her cousin. He's a loser. He's a doctor. He's a doctor. And he, every time a hospital was bombed, we were worried about him. So I wanted to say that because I felt that this is a family that I have never seen in my life. I've never, she actually hardly saw an uncle or two, because, they cannot leave. But I said, like, I need to speak. At least I do something for those extended family that I have never known. But also because when when Piers Morgan team called me a couple of times, said, "Okay, let's see what's going on in the show," and I just watched the stuff and the lies and the one-sided reporting that made my blood boil. And then I thought, like, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of, if I say something, I can lose my career. It's like, wait a minute. But that was the reason why I left Egypt. I said, wait, I left Egypt. I came to the United States. I came to the land of the free where I can say anything I want. And yet I have limitation of what to say. I mean, I thought we left that shit behind. I mean, what's happening? And I understand the connection of like how sensitive it is when you speak about Israel and all of the ready-made accusations. But as an Arab, as a Muslim, I don't react the same when you talk about Saudi Arabia or Iran or Egypt or any of them. It's like, hey, you want to diss some of these countries? I'll do that with you, because I have strong opinions about what happened, and I already been expressing them. But that's why I speak, and there's a lot of Jewish people who come to my show, and they understand that. They understand the separation. But that kind of a grouping of blackmailing people and saying and not saying what they have in their mind, it is that kind of like one of the things that kind of like push me to go on the show.
The thing that was bothering you, was it what was being said or how it was being said?
Both. Because there are lies, which is usually in the media, but there was the total disregard of humanity. You talk a lot about, in your show, about human suffering. And I felt that here the human suffering was not equal. I felt that's why I came up with this, like, what's the exchange rate today? What's the exchange rate today? There's, of course, it's terrible to see anybody die. But when I feel that, like, isn't our life not worth anything?
Yeah, you had a chart
Yeah.
akin to crypto.
Yeah.
From an you analyze it from an investing perspective, of course, in the dark
What's the
humor kind of way.
ROI on that?
And you were saying that a certain year was a good year.
Yeah, 2014.
2014 was a good year for investment purposes, and also to refer to a family member that you called a loser. You were saying that you called him, had a conversation with him, and he keeps saying that he's not using anybody for human shields, and you called him a loser. What do you do? You can't even keep a job.
The liar. He lied to us because I have to believe. But this is what the one thing. It's like, it's also one of the things, like how it was said. It was stuff that I've been hearing. I don't know what turned on my head. But it's stuff that I've been hearing all my life from the media. Israel warns civilians before bombing them. And that's okay. But that's not okay. Israel is trying to minimize the civilians but killing them anyway. And that's okay. But that's not okay. So it is kind of like the indoctrination that we've been hearing as if it is okay. And then suddenly it's not.
Yeah, there's a kind of several layers of bullshit, almost sometimes hiding the obvious horror of the situation with kind of politeness and all this kind of stuff. Just the basic value of human life. That said, it's a difficult situation.
It is. It is.
What would you do if you were Israel? BB called you. Bassem, big fan of your comedy.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, would you hang up right away? Would you hear him out?
No, I'll definitely hear him up. It's like, that was like, wait a minute, that's material. That's material. That's material, man. It's like, so Netanyahu called me.
Yeah.
I was sitting with my family, just like I have my phone, and like, oh, Netanyahu.
Yeah, it just shows up that way. I mean, what would you do? What would you do in this situation?
To answer this question, we need to understand how Israel thinks. There is an incredible speech given by Gideon Levy, the famous Israeli reporter and Hertz. And he describes a situation where he was in the West Bank and there was a checkpoint. And in that checkpoint, there was an ambulance with a Palestinian patient. And it was there sitting for an hour and a half, not moving. And then he went to talk to the soldiers, like, guys, why are you not letting them go? It's like, let them go. So like, and then he told them, imagine if he was your father. And the soldier stood up. It's like, what? These are pigs. These are not humans. So when you tell me what would you do if Israel would do, it really needs to, we need to ask, how does Israel look at the Palestinian and view the Palestinians, because they do look at them less than human. And there is an incredible talk by Mihor Meyer. He was a Holocaust survivor, and he said, I learned in Auschwitz when I was there in the concentration camp that in order for a dominant group of people to dehumanize another group, they need first to dehumanize themselves. And Israel looks at Palestinians as lesser people, as lesser beings, as some people who are dispensable. And the way that they treat them is that they don't really care about, like, that's why the exchange rate thing. So for me, if I am Israel, it will be like, what would you do if you're the United States in the time of the Native Americans? They were killing people with the millions. When you dehumanize a group of people, you really don't care. So if I was Israel, I would do exactly what Israel is doing right now, because there's no one is holding me accountable. There's no one stopping me. And I can get whatever I want throughout my history through violence.
I think a lot of the things you just said are a tiny bit slightly exaggerated. So let me try. Let's try. So not everybody in Israel.
Of course
So
not.
let's look at several groups. So people in government, IDF soldiers, and citizens that are neither of those. And not everybody of any of those sees Palestinians as less than human, just some percentage. So what percentage is that in your sense?
It's the people who have the power.
So it's mostly the focus of your commentary. When you say people in Israel, you really mean the people in power.
The people have in power,
Yeah.
but as much as, like, of course I mean the people in power, because when I speak about, even when I speak about America, I speak about people in power. When I speak about Egypt, I speak the people who are in power, because, like, I can't really talk about the 100 million people in Egypt or the 11 million people in Israel. Of course not. There are people who go in and they demonstrate against Netanyahu and they want him out of the government. But we have to admit that the Israeli society as a whole have moved quite a bit to the right, and has been like many extreme. And you know what happens when you go to the right or you go to the most extreme, the other person go to the most extreme, and extremism breeds extremism. So thank you for the clarification, but, like, I really meant with the people of power. When people criticize the United States for going in Iraq, of course I'm not criticizing citizens.
But you made another point, which is an interesting point, and it's very difficult to see in the heart of people. But I wonder if you look at the average Palestinian and the average Israeli, and when they look at the other, do they have some hate in their heart? Well, everybody probably has some. What is that amount? You know, when you look at a person that looks different than you, how much hate is there?
It depends on what is the living situation of each person. So in the Berlin Film Festival, just like couple of weeks ago, there was an Israeli and a Palestinian receiving an award together. And the Israeli director said, we're going to go back to Israel. He's going to go to the West Bank. He will have no rights, and I will have full living rights. These people managed to work together and be friends, and they have empathy to each other. Now, the average Palestinian, it's a very difficult question, because is it the Palestinian in the diaspora, or the Palestinian in Gaza, or the diaspora in the West Bank, or the one in the as a citizen of Israel, who still have less right than a Roman citizen of Israel, as a Jew? And it really depends. There are people Arabs in Israel who are having a great life, and there are people, Arabs, who are having a miserable life. But definitely people that living in Gaza or in the West Bank is kind of like on the lower tier of the living conditions. Now, let's talk about the hate. What does that Palestinian see from the Israeli? The Palestinians see oppression, limitation of movement, limitation of freedom. They have, and then when there's something happens, you see the full force coming in, destroying their home, taking away members of his family. There would be absolutely no reason for him to love the other. The Israeli, because he doesn't have the power, but he lives under his government, all he sees is the rockets or whatever, but, like, he sees the reaction, and he doesn't see what happened to those ones. And as humans, we are selfish. We see what really affects us as humans. And I cannot even imagine what it would be like to live as a Palestinian. And I'm not even talking about Gaza, because everybody talks about Gaza. But let me give you an example. And I'm not going to talk about the 12,000 kids killed in Gaza. Let's talk about just like the 4 weeks in the West Bank. March 4th, Amr Najjar, age 10, sitting next to his father, shot while he's sitting in a car next to his father by the IDF soldiers. Mohammed Ziad, 13 years old, March 3rd, shot in front of a UN school while sitting with his friends. Mohammed Ghanem, age 15, March 2nd, he shot while standing in front of a storefront during a night raid. February 23rd, Saeed Jardal, he was killed by a drone fire. February 22nd, Fadi Suleiman, killed while standing in front of the top of a Red Cross building. Nihil Ziad, February 14th, Valentine's Day, killed, a shot in the head while leaving school. February 11th, Mohammed Khattour, US citizens, killed while being in a parked car. And Mu'adh Shams, February 9th, killed right in front of his home because a military car came reversing back to him, and then somebody opened the door, shot him, and leave. This is a daily life of people in the West Bank.
What is the justification that IDF provides?
Terrorism.
Terrorism.
Or I don't know, I mean, you cannot really say like human shields, but they would say like they were throwing rocks. There was a guy who went on Chris Rock and he said like his son, a US citizen, was killed, and it's like they were throwing rocks, so we killed him. Even when they were throwing rocks, you kill him. But the thing is, you see, this is how easy for them to get rid of Palestinians. I mean, I love, like, I had to say I prepared a little bit for the podcast because you are in tech. So, and I am ignorant in tech. There is a movie called The Lab. It is directed by an Israeli director called Yotam Feldman. And he talks about how the military industry in Israel is very advanced. And what is really mind-boggling is in that movie, he shows how the military tests its weapons in the field in urban areas on Palestinians. It is heartbreaking. You know, as a doctor, there's 5 stages of trials. There is there's discovery, preclinical, clinical, and then market, and then post-market evaluation by the FDA. The FDA approval, and then the FDA post-market. 5 just to take a pill. And you go in, and he interviews people as like, where did you test this? They test it in the field. So when you just like, when human life is so cheap and it is so indispensable, it gave me a visceral reaction. Because you know, we as this has been actually the state of humanity. Humanity have lived and survived and thrived by actually killing each other. But there was kind of like we were removed from it. People in Greece didn't know what Alexander the Great was doing. He was killing and pillaging, and like we call him the Great but he was killing. He was conquering. He was invading. Julius Caesar, all of the greats, he was doing. But killing was difficult. Killing had to have some sort. You have to be with your enemy. Then you go back, catapults, then cannons, then a little bit back, and then you're kind of like starting remotely. Now you're killing people behind the screen with a push of a button. You know, a lot of people say terrorism. They killed you with a knife, killed one person with a knife, shot you. That's terrorism. But if you fly a $64 million F-16 and you drop up an A-84 bomb that costs $16,000, that's not terrorism because it's remote. You're behind the screen. So what happened? What Israel is doing? It is removing itself, like America too, drones. And then when you push someone to be they always brag about bombing them to the Stone Ages. What happens when the screens and all of the obstacles that you have been put between you and those people that you have treated them this way, when this is a breach and you come face to face, you will come face to face with what you have created.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things you just said. So one is the methodology of killing. If you want to look at some horrific, large-scale killing, people often talk about the Holocaust, but that's visceral. You can look at Holodomor by Stalin, where the murder is through starvation.
By Churchill in India.
And the Great Leap Forward by Mao.
Yep.
So starvation is a thing we don't often think of it as murder because it's quiet, it's slow. And the interesting thing about starvation is that the people don't complain as they're dying because they're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. And the other is the value of human life. It does seem that every culture has a unequal valuation of human life.
Mm-hmm.
So those two things combined create a complicated military landscape of the world.
Yes, but the thing is that how we would look at technology as the savior. As we talk about how AI will disrupt. And now if you talk about like going to the West Bank, the people in the West Bank walk and they don't see humans. They see people shouting them from towers or behind the screens or and they have like biometrics that is developed by Basel system, like that's done by HP or Google and Amazon, who are like part of Project Nimbus. And you see InDivision developing all of this like metric and surveillance and all of that stuff. And then you have like something like the gospel, that like people have actually said that like the gospel can actually create a target list using AI and give you a green, yellow, or a red to go ahead. And now AI is not just disrupting the market, it's disrupting our humanity. And we became so comfortable killing people from afar, killing people with a push of the button. And now it is like it's like dating apps, when you swipe left and right, and it's like, oh, right, it becomes so like cheap. It's not like meeting someone. It's like, oh, it's like a lot of fish in the sea. Same with AI. Boom, 500 people killed. Boom, they killed. It's so easy. And then it's so far removed from you. So when you put these people in this condition, you have literally put them in a different universe than yours. You are behind in your air-conditioned screens, like pushing them, blowing up a university. It's amazing. But then you meet the what you have done. That you meet the Frankenstein that you have created. And then people are like, oh, look what they did to us.
You just gave me this image of a dating app from hell, where leaders are just sitting there and kind of swiping left and
like,
right.
Invade,
Yeah.
destroy.
Just bored,
like
laying in bed.
Puppet government.
Yeah, and then turn off the phone, go to sleep.
Yeah.
So I traveled to the West Bank, and I mentioned to you offline that I really loved the people there. Just, I've met a bunch of people like that in Eastern Europe, where I grew up. Like the flamboyant, the big personalities, all of that. I also met a person who's in charge of a refugee camp, who was shot by an IDF soldier. And I'm not sure the words he said are important as the consequences of the thing that you mentioned, which is the deep hate in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't feel repairable at all. It was pain. It was like a foundation of pain. And on top of that, a hatred. And it was like, wow, this is what you kill one person. This is what you create.
Mm-hmm. Because we have kind of like a front row seat to what's happening. We think we're in it, but we can't really grasp it. I mean, people's like, oh, we're just going to go in, get Hamas out, and we're going to get them back in.
Mm-hmm.
And what about the people get back in? How do you think they would look at you? What have you created? What have you done? My show in Egypt was all about propaganda. It's all about the use of words. Words are very important. The decapitated babies were not chosen randomly, because you see, it plants a certain image in your brain. Imagine if you're going in, what a baby can do. It can smile, cry, and poop. That's it. It's absolutely no threat. So when you tell people 40 decapitated babies, they are so animalistic, they didn't see the babies. Women raped. Of course, he's an animal to do that. And they would go through that. And what was very frustrating about the conversation is the gish galloping. Throwing, you see the distractions? You see what happens? It's like, what's the proportionate response? Can Israel defend itself? Do you condemn Hamas? Does Israel has the right to exist? Decapitated babies, raped women. Why don't the Arab countries take them? Why don't the Muslims kill Muslims? Look what happened in Yemen, in Syria, in Iraq. See how they kind of distract you. They throw little things at you, so you don't know what to do. Oh, the UNRWA, the UNN, anti-Semitic, October 7th, and then suddenly you are distracted and pulled into discussing all of these little things. And you're not discussing what's happening right now. It is basically stalling, giving them time to do what they do.
So there's some degree to the propaganda, the beheaded babies and all this kind of stuff that is so over the top that it shuts down actual conversation about actual wrongs, war crimes on both sides.
Mm.
So it's overstating it to where everyone on social media and everywhere in the press and everywhere is arguing, almost become desensitized to actual horrors of death, which are more mundane. They're not so dramatic as beheaded babies.
Yeah, because people, a baby is shot, but decapitated babies. There's like a knife blade that goes into the skin, the trachea, the flesh, the spine. Decapitated. Like how that you can just like he's dead. No, you go in. This is the hate. There's so much hate, and that's why
you have made me laugh at the darkest shit. You're such a beautiful person. Your dark humor is just wonderful.
But you see, this happened to Jews before. Remember blood libel? Where did the blood libel come from? It comes from these rumors that Jews suck babies' blood. This is what they did to them.
What's in the cup?
That's a very delicious baby cup.
Delicious baby blood.
But this is what you do. You tell people something, and it happened with the Native Americans when they were here. When they went in and they wipe a whole tribe. So and Jewish people are one of the minorities that were persecuted and had this used against them for a very long time, and it is terrible and it's terrifying that's been used again.